and hopefully you will see value in supporting our country.
All right, folks, that was just a quick word on behalf of my partners over at switch-stores.com/Patriot Underground. As you often hear me say, this is the best company out there for you to do all of your household and your personal item shopping, shipped directly to your door at incredibly competitive prices by a company that is standing shoulder to shoulder with truthers like myself and competing directly against the cabal-controlled big box conglomerates. This is a no-brainer. I made the switch a couple of years ago, and I never looked back. Hopefully, you'll click on that link and make the same decision. You'll be very happy you did, folks. I promise you I wouldn't steer you wrong. All right, everybody. God bless and Godspeed. Patriot out. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is July 29th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. And today it is my pleasure to welcome back the great Mike King to the platform. We're going to be having a discussion about Israel today. And certainly this is a very timely topic. I think Mike would agree, given the recent developments. We have the situation heating up with Lebanon, but certainly all along this entire journey, there's been a lot of confusion about Trump and his statements and his optical support of the Zionist regime. And like nobody else can do, Mike King is going to pull back the curtain today, and he's going to explain exactly how the White Hats and Trump are covertly defanging the head of the deep state snake, which is the Zionist regime. So, Mike, it's great to have you back. Welcome.
Patriot, thank you. Thank you. And you said the key word there in your intro, optic. And everything is about optics because this is psychological war, information war, communication war.
Absolutely.
And people need to understand this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really are the best person out there, I think, in terms of decoding all of these optics. And it's an honor to have you back on the platform. So let me just go ahead and pull up this document that we're going to be using as a springboard for our conversation today. And Mike, why don't you just kind of talk us through the 8 dangerous weapons of irregular warfare, and then we'll go ahead and dive right in.
Okay. Well, first thing to understand is when I use the term warfare, it's not for rhetorical effect or metaphor. We are in a war, and it's actually a war where a lot of people are being killed off stage, and the stakes are enormous, even more so than World War I or World War II. So we are literally in a war. That's what this whole Q operation is all about. And when you understand that we're in a war, deception and secrecy, miscommunication, misdirection, misinformation, that is the essence of warfare. Yeah, I mean, you go to World War II.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Apart from the fact the wrong side won, but what did the Allies do to deceive the Germans? They would put inflatable airplanes and jeeps are made out of wood, and they would mass them so the enemy bombers would think that they're bombing equipment when they weren't. They're just bombing junk. Mm-hmm. I mean that's what goes on in warfare. Yep. But and that's in the standard conventional warfare. When you get to psychological, informational, communications, everything is fog and deception, so much so that even your own team gets fooled. That's why we have to study and analyze and see what's going on. Right. So when you understand that, there's no need to start freaking out and getting nervous. Every time Trump says, I stand with Israel, I love Israel, okay? Or when he used to say, oh, the Clintons are good people. Remember that? All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Just ignore that. Those are optics, head fakes.
Yeah, and like Sun Tzu told us, all warfare is based on deception. And certainly we've seen Trump on many occasions demonstrate his affinity for Sun Tzu. As a matter of fact, there was I don't know if you recall, Mike, at the very beginning of 2024, the first ad that he put out, it's the same one that Dave and Mark at News Treason use as an intro, with Dream On in the background. And there's a direct picture there of Sun Tzu where it says learning from fools and from sages. The sage would be Sun Tzu. So, going back to that, like you highlighted there, all warfare is based on deception. And so many people out there, and I understand why, and it's not a judgment against folks, but they don't understand the necessity of using deception, using fog of war in order to achieve victory. And as it pertains to Israel, this has caused an awful lot of confusion, consternation amongst the patriot community. That's why this is such a relevant topic, in addition to many other reasons as well. But continue, please.
No, that's right. It's caused confusion. It also creates an opening for the adversary to infiltrate us with their agents who pretend to be us and say, "Oh, Trump bad. He works for the Jews." And so there's a lot of that going on, believe me.
Oh, yeah.
So, but we're going to clarify that today. On this sheet here, I summarize and define the 8 dangerous weapons of Israel's irregular warfare. And then later on, we're going to go through them one by one, and I will demonstrate how Trump has systematically and deliberately deactivated every one of these weapons, disarmed Israel. Because remember, Israel is not a military power. Their dominance doesn't come from force, physical military force. Just a tiny country the size of New Jersey, a few million people. They can't even take southern Lebanon every time they go in there to get their asses kicked, right? So what is this awesome power that they wield? Well, it's through the irregular weapons of warfare. Number one, and this is in no particular order. I mean, each one of these is mightier than the next. It's almost impossible to rank. But I call number one the quote-unquote anti-Semitism card / Anti-Defamation League, because the ADL is the primary disseminator of the false charge of anti-Semitism. And once that gets out there, they have, over the years, over the decades, destroyed so many politicians, journalists, prominent businessmen, anyone who dared to question Israel or point a finger in the direction of the Rothschilds or even just mention the name George Soros. Boom. ADL labels you as an anti-Semite, and better you should be called a child rapist than an anti-Semite in this society of ours. So that is a killer label. It goes together because the ADL, in essence, defines what is anti-Semitism. Irregular weapon number 2, the neoconservative movement. This began in the 1980s when all of a sudden a bunch of leftist Marxist Jewish intellectuals, mainly from New York City, they just discovered one day, you know what, we're not liberal Marxists anymore. We're going to be Reagan conservatives. Just like that. The idea was to take over the Republican Party. And what happened is conservatives went so gaga over this. It's like, oh my God, this is wonderful. People won't call us racist anymore because now all these Jews think like us, and they welcome them into their ranks. And in short order, they rose to positions and took over the conservative publications and the think tanks, and they became the intellectual force controlling so-called conservative thought in the Republican Party. And the old school conservatives were kind of bumped off.
And these are all the war hawks, by the way.
Israel first.
Yeah, these are all the war hawks pushing that agenda, as we know, which of course is the Zionist agenda to keep the United States constantly engaged in warfare in defense of Israel. Because as you pointed out, without the U.S. backing the Israelis militarily, they'd cease to exist. And I think the entire world knows that.
Right.
And the neocons just came in with that camouflage, and it was quite effective, certainly, going back.
It certainly was. And there were a number of old school conservatives who wrote eloquently about this, spoke eloquently about this, like Pat Buchanan, about how we just opened up our arms to them, and next thing you know, we're out of business. And then they have their front men that they operate to. They enhance their careers. People like Dick Cheney, George Bush II in particular, George Will. So it was huge.
Yep.
Number 3, AIPAC, the Israel lobby. Again, I could produce a list for you of probably 100 names over the years of congressmen and senators that they targeted and removed. Okay, they're so powerful, so much money, and they can even identify an unknown, obscure congressman who maybe is not totally down with the agenda. And all of a sudden, one day he wakes up and he's got a primary challenger funded by AIPAC, and then he's being attacked. So that's the kind of power they have. They can just remove people from office. Ask Cynthia McKinney about that.
Yeah, and they work in tandem, of course, with number one, the ADL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
They
no.
all work in tandem. Yep.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Mhm.
Okay. So that is mighty, the mightiest, most intimidating lobby, and they have always resisted any kind of idea. I mean, it will get nowhere if you try to get them registered as a foreign agent. That's how powerful they are.
That's it.
Or were. We'll get into that.
Yeah, were. Yeah.
Number 4, ISIS, which many people believe truly stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. In fact, that's what deep in the CIA, when they used the term ISIS, that was the code word for Israel Secret Intelligence Service. Because think about it. They say, it stands for, what did it say? Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Why would Islamists who speak Arabic use an English language acronym?
Right.
No, that doesn't make any sense. No, ISIS is Mossad. It's Mossad CIA front. That's indisputable.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is you have these so-called Islamic terrorists. It's just a mercenary army. They recruit them from the prisons of the Arab world. And then you have some fanatical dupes in there who, I don't know, maybe they truly believe that they're fighting for some great cause. It's CIA Mossad. And it's interesting. The one country they never targeted was Israel. At one point at their peak, they said they were active in like 40 different countries. They say they're ISIS affiliates. Okay, so evidently it's like a Burger King. You get an affiliate, you can start up in another country. But it was a tool of destabilization.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were most known for, if you think about it, was trying to topple Assad of Syria, who's Israel's number one on their hit list. Okay,
That's right.
So that was a very powerful, dangerous, incredibly well-funded tool of Israel's irregular warfare.
And it's amazing to me, Mike, that more people haven't pointed that out. That you would think, the normie understanding of ISIS and what they represent seems to be the antithesis of everything that Israel stands for, and yet they've never actually, at least optically on the surface, and yet they've never actually attacked Israel.
That's right.
And
they've never even spoken ill of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weirdest thing.
You would think that would be their stated purpose, would be to wipe Israel off the map, and that type of language. But you haven't heard that coming out of their mouths. Right. Very interesting, huh?
Oh, but that's a Mossad operation. But don't you dare even hint at that, because then back to number 1.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, 5th most dangerous weapon of Israeli irregular warfare: Epstein-Maxwell Island, and also the Nexium sex cult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, there's no doubt about this one. This was a Mossad operation. Ghislaine Maxwell, her father's Robert Maxwell, a super Israeli agent. He was a big media mogul, died under very mysterious circumstances. When he was buried in Jerusalem in a place of high honor, which would be the equivalent of their Arlington National Cemetery. And all the former chiefs of Mossad were there. That's Ghislaine's daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jeff Epstein, he was just a math teacher from New York, right? A bright guy, corrupt guy, but he was just the perfect guy to run the operation, front man. He was not the power behind Epstein Island. It was Ghislaine Maxwell.
I never knew he was a math teacher.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay. I think he was a high school math teacher, and he hooked up with these people. And one of the girls, well, she's a young woman now, Maria Farmer, she gives so much testimony about this. You could look her up. She used to say Epstein would boast to her, yeah, you see this house? Les Wexner gave it to me for $1. Everything, house, car, everything for $1. Les Wexner, CEO of Victoria's Secret, total Mossad Sayanim, they call it, operatives in other countries. Oh, another one of these characters who suddenly resigned, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Q told us everyone's resigning. He had the list. Les Wexner.
Oh, yeah.
It's really ought to be called Wexner's Island or Wexner-Maxwell Island. Epstein, just I won't say he's a front guy. He was part of their mafia, but he was just a recruited math teacher, and he was the face of it. And they made a character for him of this billionaire investor. It was Les Wexner, Ghislaine Maxwell, Mossad, 100%. Honeypot operation, blackmail, only not except with women with children and young girls, and God knows what else they were doing in the bowels of that so-called temple. Little boys, infants, who knows? Whatever you get your jollies off, they'll give it to you. I'm sure they did snuff over there, which is they get off on murdering the child. NXIVM, very similar, also mentioned by Q, sex cult. Keith Raniere is the front man, big out in Hollywood. The power behind NXIVM, the power and the money was the Bronfman sisters. There's two of them. Who's their daddy? Edgar Bronfman, who was chairman of the World Jewish Congress for many years. That's of Seagram's alcohol fame.
Yep.
So this is big. This is how they get you. This kind of tactic goes back to the days of Woodrow Wilson. And now, they didn't set up Woodrow Wilson, I don't think, but they did come to know that he had a little piece on the side. And they used that to squeeze them. And that's how we got the Fed and the World War I, et cetera. So, but now it's with children. This is an enormous weapon. How many people were ensnared in this? Hundreds. Big people.
Yeah. And some of them, from what I understand, against their will, even they got drugged. They go to these parties, they have a sip of something, and the next thing they know, they're in a compromising position with an underage kid. Photos are taken, and they own you one way or another, because
right.
Whether you intended to go in and like, as you said, get your jollies, or whether you just found yourself in that situation, either way, they got you. And this is
just like the character Senator Geary in Godfather 2. I don't know if you ever saw that. They set him up with a young girl, and that's it. Then they owned him. He was anti-mafia, and then he became pro-mafia. But it's twofold. You got the people who are tricked into it, and then you have a lot of characters who go willingly. It's like, I don't care. Go ahead, blackmail me. I'm selling my soul. You're going to make me a big politician, a celebrity. I don't care.
Yeah, they're consciously evil.
Yeah, right. Right. So this is huge. And it's not just the island. Epstein had a ranch in New Mexico, property in Florida, got the townhouse in New York.
And there were multiple different islands as well. It wasn't just Epstein Island. There was a whole conglomerate of them down there.
Yeah, I understand Biden had one.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the on his senator's salary.
And Branson as well, Richard Branson.
Branson, yep.
And
this is big. This is how they control. Number 6, the paid pastors of Christian Zionism. These are the pastors who preach from that Schofield Bible, which was annotated. End times prophecy. Israel has to, in Jerusalem, have to come into existence in order for us to get raptured, et cetera, et cetera. They worship Israel. A lot of these churches fly the Israeli flag. They celebrate Passover. I mean, they're hardcore. There might be as many as 30 million evangelical Zionists.
That's right.
Who bought into this stuff. And some of the pastors are dupes, but a lot of them are paid assets.
Absolutely.
Years ago, Jerry Falwell was given a private jet from the government of Israel. That's a fact. You look it up. People like John Hagee, Vanderplatz, they're big, but it's also a lot of the small ones, because it's not just that they're all corrupt. A lot of them really believe this stuff. And man, you say one negative word about Israel, they will jump on you. And there's 30 million people. This is maybe even more fearsome than the Jewish lobby itself. And also within the Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think this one, number 6, speaks directly to, and I know you're going to elaborate on it when we get to it, but why Trump has to operate the way that he does within the Republican Party to remain, to keep it unified in essence, without going and alienating people by telling the truth about what Zionism is really all about.
Right.
And we'll talk about that when we get to it.
And then number 7, of course, the mainstream media. I mean, there's just absolutely no denying the penetration of the media by, the tribe. I mean, this goes way back.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. 1967, Israelis murdered 30 something U.S. sailors in broad daylight.
Yep.
And there was not a mention of it in the New York Times, not even in the back pages. Washington Post, ABC, NBC. It's like, let's all pretend this never happened. That can never happen today. But so, I mean, just to give you an idea, they've always covered up for Israel.
Yeah.
But not now. Not now. We'll get into that. But not
yeah,
now.
a lot of people don't even really know about the USS Liberty incident because of that. I mean, they really stuffed that down the memory hole. But you're right. I mean, they can't do the same thing now. Like with the Satanic Olympics, they're trying to, remove all the videos, say, oh, don't show that anymore. But, we're in a totally different day and age.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. So that's always been a powerful weapon. Always cover up for Israel. Always the big bad Arabs. Okay. Condition the public to hate Arabs and Muslims. This way, when 9/11 come along, it was so easy to say, oh, they did it. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, this is maybe their most mightiest weapon if you did have to rank them. And then number 8, which is a function or a product rather of the other 7, you're hitting on the other 7, then automatically you get to access number 8 through the politicians and the journalists lending their support to U.S. military action, which is for whatever fake pretext they want to cook up for democracy or human rights. But no, it's to serve Israel's interest, such as take out Saddam Hussein for us, take out Muammar Gaddafi for us, take out Assad for us. Only that one failed. Okay. And then there's just the threat of the presence and the potential of U.S. military intervention, which allows Israel to get away with its bad behavior and threaten other countries. Okay. So that's their little Frankenstein monster they can sick on you by using the other 7 dangerous weapons of irregular warfare. Is the 8th weapon, which is conventional warfare, only by proxy.
That's right.
So you put it all together and you begin to really appreciate the awesome power of this Zionist force and what Trump and the Q operation were up against.
Absolutely. I was going to say that they use number 7 as a way to sell number 8 to get everyone, the hearts and minds of everyone to support these endless wars. And this is a really amazing list because all of them, they mesh together so well. You've got the propaganda arm / brainwashing. You've got the false flags in order to have that problem reaction solution type of paradigm repeating over and over. And then of course you've got the intimidation factor that the mainstream media, I guess the intimidation factor can be looked at in 2 separate ways. The intimidation from the mainstream media and getting bullied by the Israeli lobby and so on and so forth, and the ADL, and then ultimately the big stick, which is the U.S. military. So yeah, excellent breakdown of all these dangerous weapons of irregular warfare. So let's go ahead and dig into them in a little bit more specificity here, but there were a couple of Q posts that you wanted to highlight as well.
Yes, early on. Q post 151, November 14, 2017. How do you capture a very dangerous animal? Who's the dangerous animal? We just reviewed that.
Yeah, we just went over that. Yeah.
Okay, pretty damn dangerous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you attack it from the front? Do you walk through the front door? Do you signal ahead of time you will be attacking? So these knuckleheads who, I don't know, I suppose they wanted Trump to get in there and start going, the Jews. What's that? Are you kidding me? You don't go through the front door.
No.
How do you capture a lion? You're going to go at it with your fists? It's not how I would handle it. No. I would throw him some nice side of beef, win his trust. Yeah, kitty. Okay, wait till he goes to sleep and then hit him over the head with a boulder. That's how you do it.
Yeah, well, their whole machine that you just described, those 8 bullet points there, that's to protect a frontal assault. I mean, all of that was put in there specifically so that you couldn't go at this enemy directly. I think, and it's pretty obvious and intuitive. And, again, it comes back to this basic principle here where a lot of people are just getting hung up on the deception factor, and they want the white hats to just come out and lay all the cards out on the table. But this is exactly why you can't do it. This machine was set up and fortified to protect itself against these types of attacks, so that covert warfare was the only way to actually defang what is really the head of the snake, as you described.
Yeah, precisely. This is just basic common sense. It's not even heavy duty Sun Tzu philosophy.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, duh. You're gonna go head on against that. I could rattle off 20 names off the top of my head. Senators, congressmen, journalists, famous people. They just made a whiff and they were destroyed.
Gone. Yep.
Gone. Okay.
Absolutely. And we've seen it too in other contexts as well. Even not to digress here, but with the jab, when Trump came out and said, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and this, I mean, they absolutely crucified him. So we've seen this same pattern over and over and over. If you try to make a frontal assault, as I mentioned a moment ago, it always fails. And that's the whole reason why we have to have this covert operation, and why it's taken so long, and why we have the Q post to communicate with those of us who have eyes to see and ears to hear what's really going on behind the scenes. But you can't do it optically. You can't go in the front door.
That's right. I mean, you must, whether it's chess or football or boxing, whatever, you must respect your adversary.
Yeah.
You simply just can't do what you want to do sometimes. It's like, I'm reminded of football. I mean, I remember back in the day, Deion Sanders was such a phenomenal cornerback.
Oh, yeah.
You just couldn't throw the ball in his direction. He would intercept it or knock it down. So what happens? Well, whoever your wide receiver is that's being covered by him, you say, okay, enjoy your day off. We're throwing it in another direction. Yeah, that's the way it was. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not that you're capitulating, but you have to respect your adversary's power. Deception and cunning. Q Post 916, March 10, 2018. We are saving Israel for last. Who's in the news today a lot? Israel. Very specific reason, not mentioned a single time. And that reason is it's a very dangerous animal. There's also another Q Post I neglected to add, but I should mention it. When do you attack the king in chess? In the beginning or in the end? First, you have to go for the pawns and the secondary pieces. The king comes last, saving Israel for last. The very dangerous animal. Get it?
This is the one here, yeah.
There you go. Do you attack the king at the beginning of the game? Do you attack pawns first? So he's telling you right there, this is how it's done.
Mm-hmm. So, and he says, is the game being played public or private? And very interestingly, do emotions affect critical thinking? That's also something that gets tied into this conversation as well. I mentioned in the beginning, the emotions that people have, this sentiment about Israel, and everybody wants the commander-in-chief to come out and just tell everybody the truth about the Zionists. Doesn't work that way. This is exactly what Q is telling us, and the reason for it.
So there's certainly no reason for a self-professed student of Q to be falling for this business of Trump's too soft on Israel, or he's in bed with his, come on. So
yeah, I mean, if you're a student of Q at this point in time, everything you see should be through the lens of the movie, the lens of the
absolutely. Yeah.
Honestly, it's getting clearer and clearer with every passing day. And actually, you've been one of the most instrumental figures out there, I think, pointing that out to people that, look, the deeper we get into this, the more obvious it becomes that we're watching a scripted movie, which, by the way, Q told us verbatim that's what was happening. All right. So let's go. Right. And you want to do a little intro?
Let me just set this up.
Sure.
Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. Famous line from Godfather 2. Now, early on in the film, there's a scene where Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, and his wife, they're getting ready to go to bed, and machine guns start blasting right through their windows. He throws her on the floor. They crawl under the bed. They escape assassination, just barely. He knows who did it. He knows it's a Jewish gangster based in Miami named Hyman Roth.
Hyman Roth. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he plots his revenge. But Hyman Roth is big. I think he's modeled on Meyer Lansky.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's even bigger than the Corleones in the film. Immense power and wealth, this Jewish gangster. How do you capture a dangerous animal? What does Michael Corleone do? He doesn't go right at him. He basically does what we're talking about here. So, and I've set the table. If you could just go and play from 45 to 3:02, listen closely to the dialogue and pay attention to the passionate guy that he's talking to who wants instant revenge on Hyman Roth and how Michael handles this.
I want you to help me get my revenge.
Michael, anything. What can I do?
Settle these troubles with the Rosado brothers.
Mike, I don't understand. I don't have your brain for big deals. But this is a street thing. That Hyman Roth in Miami, he's backing up those son of a bitches.
I know he is.
Then why? Why do you ask me to lay down to him, Mike?
It was Hyman Roth that tried to have me killed. I know it was him.
Jesus Christ, Mike. Jesus Christ. Now, look, let's get them all. Let's hit them all now while we got the muscle.
This used to be my father's old study. It's changed. I remember there used to be a big desk was here. I remember when I was a kid, Frankie, we had to be very quiet when we played near here. I was very happy that this house never went to strangers. First Clemenza took it over, now you. My father taught me many things here. He taught me in this room. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Now, if Hyman Roth sees that I interceded in this thing, in the Rosado brothers' favor, he's gonna think his relationship with me is still good. Agabit.
Rabbi.
That's what I want him to think. I want him completely relaxed and confident in our friendship. Then I'll be able to find out who the traitor in my family was.
That's how you roll.
Cool clip. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So then what happens? He flies down to Miami. He goes to the home of Hyman Roth. He meets with him. He's watching a football game, having a sandwich, and he's just kissing his ass. You're a great man, Mr. Roth. There's so much I want to learn from you. You know, I know you and my father did business, blah, 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 blah. Hyman Roth is thinking, this guy is kissing my ass. He doesn't even know that he leads him to think that somebody else tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So he plays him. And in the end, Hyman Roth is killed by Michael Corleone's hitman. It was beautiful. He got all the information he needed, and then he had the gangster killed.
And he smoked out the traitor in his own family. Which,
Fredo. He smoked out Fredo. So he got a lot of information. And that's also analogous because they've been smoking people out the whole time. So
absolutely.
That's exactly what's been happening. So be not alarmed if Michael says to Hyman Roth, you're a great man, Mr. Roth. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to demonstrate that irrefutably, indisputably, that's what's been taking place.
You can almost imagine Trump having and the White Hats having a similar conversation behind the scenes about Israel, right? wanting them to be relaxed and confident in our relationship, and all of these things that Michael Corleone said. It's a brilliant analogy.
Right. Okay, well, this is how you do it. This is Michael Corleone going to Miami, kissing Hyman Roth's ass. Okay? And then people see this, and you see these knuckleheads. You see these pictures all over the net. Oh, this is what Trump really is. Okay. I mean, if it's over your head, fine. But this presentation is more for people who are confused and have questions and concerns. Some of these black pill knuckleheads, they're like that character who just, let's hit them all. Let's hit them all. We got the muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that's what Trump is doing in so many other ways. This is how he deactivated or preempted the inevitable charge of anti-Semitism. And believe it or not, ADL tried to pin that on him many times. It's not going to work. Why? Because of stuff like this, because his rhetoric is over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. And it's almost providential that his daughter married to Jared Kushner, because now he can say, I got Jewish grandkids. Okay? Right. Some of my best friends are Jews. Perfect. So that's what that is. That is Michael Corleone in Miami, right from the movie, kissing Hyman Roth's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Optics.
And this was this was on his first trip to Israel, wasn't it?
I don't know what year this is. Maybe
I think he did it pretty early.
19. Yeah, he went once, and then there's all the other stuff like light the menorah at the White House, and he's chummy, or so it seems, with Bibi with the matching Israeli blue ties.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we did. If we go to the next panel here, what do I got here? Okay. So I'm going in order of those 8 irregular weapons of warfare. ADL/anti-Semitism card. Up top, I just figured I would add this in just to give people a little background on ADL. That's Leo Frank, 1913. He owned a pencil factory in Atlanta. There was a 13-year-old girl working there. He raped and murdered her, and then he tried to pin it on the black janitor. And that's when the ADL was formed, and that was their first major initiative to defend Leo Frank. The girl's name was Mary Fagan. He was guilty as hell, but already they had power back then, so he didn't get the death penalty. Now, this kind of stuff used to be automatic death penalty back then. Okay. But they pressured the Georgia politicians instead. He was in prison. And at some point, the good old boys of Atlanta said, no way. They went to the prison. The guards kind of stood down. They took him out and they hung him by a tree. Okay. Pedophile, murderer. And the ADL was formed that year. And to this day, they say, no, it wasn't him. It was the black guy. So this is an anti-racist organization, right? And they're pinning it on the innocent black guy, the janitor.
Unbelievable.
So, but they did attack Trump. They say he flirts. He uses dog whistles to promote anti-Semitism. It's just not going to stick. And it's not sticking. Why? Because Trump went to all these lengths. You see the picture at the Wailing Wall. You see all the photo ops with Bibi. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Okay? Which is not a big deal because, that was decided 80 years ago. West Jerusalem, Jewish, East Jerusalem for the Arabs is not a big deal. He recognized the Golan Heights, but that was stolen 50, 60 years ago. That's not a big deal. But he made it a big deal. And he just went over the top. I stand with Israel. Islamic terrorism, bad. Iran, bad. And it got a lot of people in our movement confused. In fact, as far as I know, I was the one who coined the term Trumpstein. Because in the first few months of his presidency, he was so over the top with this. I said, oh, my God, it turns out he's a neocon all along. How about that? I started referring to him as Trumpstein. I could pull up the old articles.
He's pretty good.
After a while, what's that?
I said he's pretty good if he could fool you. Because
he had me. And then he started with Little Rocket Man, we're going to bomb you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized all he did is he bombed an empty field in Syria. And then that there was back channel negotiations with Korea the whole time. in order to bring North and Korea together. So I figured it out. I said, I see what he's doing. This is all a smokescreen. Shuts up his critics. Meanwhile, he's doing the exact opposite.
Yeah, it shuts down the propaganda machine. It shuts down the ADL. It shuts down the mainstream media. It basically robs them of any ammunition that they were going to use against him. And he's done this on so many different issues. I think we even talked about the Second Amendment thing, banning the bump stocks, and now that ban has been reversed. All this, so he's a master at it, and it's very, very convincing because again, the mainstream media, they always highlight and emphasize the things that are advantageous to them. But when Trump's the president of the United States and he's coming out and saying, overtly supporting Israel or overtly supporting what appears to be on the surface their agenda, he takes away the ammunition that they could use against him.
That's right. And he went so over the top. Again, Michael Corleone, Hyman Roth, you're a great man. He went so over the top with this, like no other president before. It went so over the top that it was strange, but now it makes sense.
Yeah. So over the top that a lot of people bought it.
They sure did. As a matter of fact, because of this is a fact. You read this in the Israeli papers. Trump is more popular among the Israeli population than Bibi Netanyahu is.
Oh, yeah.
They named a development after him, Trump Heights. Okay. Why? Because he keeps saying, we will always defend Israel. Nobody will mess with Israel while I'm president. And it goes on and on and on. Because, your average Israeli citizen is just a normie like everybody else. They believe that they're a constant threat. And here's Trump, their most passionate protector. And he just goes on and on and on. They cannot, and they tried to stick him with the anti-Semitism card. And through his proxies, he has directly attacked the ADL. Tucker Carlson said, quote, F the ADL. Elon Musk, who's working for Trump, he's a fill-in, by the way. He's another Biden character. That's another story.
Elon
threatened to sue the ADL. So it's fashionable now to attack the ADL, and more people than ever now. Candace Owens, another one. These are all proxies of Trump. So he will unleash his proxies. Meanwhile, he stays back. I love Israel. I love Israel. It's beautiful. Here's a headline. Haaretz, Israeli news service. Israelis love Trump more than almost any other nation, poll shows. Bingo. How are you going to tag him as an anti-Semite? Hey, the Israelis love me. I think he said once, I could run for president of Israel. And again, the people in our movement who don't understand, they seethe when they hear this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. Here, from the tablet, this is a Jewish magazine. I bring the receipts, Patriot. Believe me.
Oh, I know you do.
Here's the headline. News and politics. No more ADL. When it comes to the Jews, the organization now does more harm than good, by Lyle Leibowitz, Jewish writer. Because so much bad stuff is been said about them. They've been attacked and they smoked them out. They've become so extreme. Even Jews are saying, you're making us look bad. Okay? Mm-hmm. So,
and they've been caught lying how many times? I mean, gosh, we could probably do a whole show on how many times the ADL has been caught lying and, setting up all of these bogus anti-Semitic. I mean, and this is on a large scale, but even on the local level, they engineer with their operatives all of these. Somebody did a swastika here.
Oh yeah,
said this or that, and they're always have to stoke the flames, if you will, to basically to justify their existence. There has to be constant anti-Semitic stuff out there for them to respond to. Otherwise, they don't have a reason to exist. So they manufacture it.
That's right.
And the Jewish people out there, the ones who aren't Zionists, the average Jews out there, at a certain point, you start to recognize this, and you say, "My goodness, there's not an anti-Semite under every rock." And this is actually counterproductive. This is making us look bad. This isn't doing what it's purportedly supposed to do.
Yes, that's correct. And it is very much like the use of the term racism doesn't work anymore.
Right.
But it was Trump who deliberately drew this out of them, made them go crazy, and now people see they're crazy. So it's like, You talk about George Soros, ADL. Oh, that's anti-Semitism. So at this point, I don't even know if it's truly the ADL anymore. Executive Order 1381, because lately they've been sounding so ridiculous, they become a caricature of themselves.
Yeah.
And it is an embarrassment.
And that's not an easy thing to do, for them to become a caricature of themselves.
Yeah.
It's even more outrageous than they've been. But I tend to agree with you. Absolutely. I think this organization, like so many others, most others, has been infiltrated successfully by the White Hats, and they are putting on the show, and they're giving them, optically enough rope to discredit and hang themselves. That's the
precisely. And when Elon Musk went after them, so now this is the organization since 1913. Man, I could show you speeches of like old presidents and prominent political people, like just genuflecting before the head of the ADL.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got Tucker Carlson saying F them. Oh, but what has changed? Trump did that. The Anti-Defamation League, this awesome weapon that terrorized so many people for 100 years, gone, deactivated. Donald Trump did that.
And I think he also...
ADL. Bye-bye.
I love it. I love that you're using props now. I like the popcorn on the show the other day, and that one was a good one too. But I think also it's worth pointing out here that before Trump could set this all up to have these institutions like the ADL discredit themselves, he was basically the single force that came along and destroyed the whole notion of political correctness.
Oh yeah.
And he did that from day one. I remember him saying, "Oh, just outright, this country's got too many problems. We don't have time for political correctness and all that sort of thing." So I think that needed to happen first. It had nothing to do with the ADL or the Jews or anything like that. He just was saying, look, people need to start telling the truth and speaking the truth. And that started to catch on. So this demolition of this construct of political correctness, we owe that to Trump, quite frankly. I think historians are going to look back and be able to recognize that he was the political figure who came on the scene and finally gave people enough courage and confidence to speak the truth instead of walking on eggshells. That had to happen first.
Right. He gave courage to people, and then it spread like a virus.
That's right.
So now everybody's bad mouthing the ADL.
Yeah. Telling the truth.
Never thought I'd live to see the day.
I know it. It's incredible.
Okay. Irregular weapon of Israeli warfare number 2, the neoconservatives. And I mentioned earlier what happened in the 80s. William Kristol, actually Irving Kristol, the father of William Kristol, Norman Podhoretz, William Safire, Midge Decter. It was a whole cadre of them. Came out of nowhere. Just like that. Hey, we're Marxists. New York City intellectual Marxists. Oh, we're Reagan conservatives now, everybody. Listen up. We've seen the light.
It's laughable on its face. That's why I'm laughing.
Well, it is, but I guess people didn't see it coming. So you had real conservative, I guess you would call the MAGA of the day, various think tanks and publications are like, oh, come on in. And then the media hyped them up, and then they would like promote each other, and it grew and grew. And all of a sudden, conservatism became neoconservatism. So many books were written on these characters. Back then, it was a big phenomenon. Peter Steinfels, neoconservatives, the men who are changing America's politics. That's how powerful they were. Okay? So they became the new intellectual force, telling Republicans what to think.
Yeah.
And you know, they mouth some good conservative slogans, tax cuts, limited government, this and that.
Yep.
That masked what they were really all about. What were they all about? Look at the book on the right. These are scholarly books written by establishment people. The Transparent Cabal by Stephen Snigowski. Subtitle: The Neoconservative Agenda. War in the Middle East and the National Interest of Israel. Forward by former Congressman Paul Finley. Introduction by Professor Paul, I can't make that out.
Gottfried, I think.
It's a whole book, and that's exactly what it was about. Perpetual war. the American empire on Israel's behalf, making the American military serve Israel's interests. That's neoconservatism.
Exactly.
And they ran the Republican Party. And but that was their smokescreen. You read the columns of some of them, like William Safire, George Will, on any given day. You can read it, okay, as a MAGA patriot, and say, "Wow, this is good. This is good stuff. This is really sublime." Like really, like go after. But that was the cover, sort of like the reverse of what Trump is doing now, right?
Yep.
So they would sound like hardcore conservatives, but man, when it came to the first Gulf War with Papa Bush, the second Gulf, I mean, these are the people who gave us 9/11. This is PNAC. Okay, but they were the dominant power of the Republican Party in the conservative circles, both intellectually, journalistically, and politically. Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they now? They're out of business. What happened? Well, they knew what Trump was all about. Okay, when he came down that escalator from day one, he smoked them out. They showed their true colors. They all came out against Trump. They were pro Jeb Bush. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after Trump prevailed in the primaries, every single one of these sons of bitches openly came out for Hillary Clinton. So now the Republican rank and file, they saw this. They said, who are these people? What's wrong with them? What do you mean you support it? George Will, he says, the Republic will survive Hillary Clinton, but not Donald Trump. All of them, right down the line.
All the never Trumpers.
Never Trumper. Never Trumper is neocon, synonymous.
Absolutely.
And that's why.
Yeah.
Because they knew he was not Israel's bitch. Forget about the I love Israel routine. They knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's interesting too, the timing of the neocon movement, if you will, their emergence into politics and their dominance and takeover was right around, was leading up to 9/11. And it was necessary in order to implement, in order to get the conservative, the conservatives in America, the hearts and minds to back all of these endless wars and their 16-year plan. They needed to make that pivot. And it's incredible. I remember back in those days, in 2000, 2001, and then the Iraq war, watching these guys up there. And I mean, they literally were the ideological center, if you will, or they were representing the ideological center of the Republican Party at that time, but they were nothing but rhinos.
Yeah. Richard Pearl, remember him? Douglas Feith, Paul Wolfowitz,
right.
Louis Libby, chief of staff of Dick Cheney, who's one of them. I mean, the whole bunch. As soon as 9/11 hit, they knew it was an inside job. They were the ones who wrote that paper, The New Pearl Harbor, 1 year earlier, telling us New Pearl Harbor's coming. So that's who they were. And as soon as people saw this, the circulation for their magazines, for example, Weekly Standard, National Review, nobody wanted anything to do with them. It's like, you guys endorsed Hillary? So that was the end of them in the party and also in the conservative media. And now true conservative re-emerged. True conservatism was always against the wars, World War I, World War II, even Korea and Vietnam. They changed it to make us into a war party, but now they're gone.
Absolutely. And I love how you also pointed out recently that this smoke out operation even continued after Trump's first term with DeSantis, and you explained that.
DeSantis was used to smoke out more of them. Right.
Yeah. But now there are no never Trumpers. Where'd they all go?
They're gone.
And all of a sudden the party
is purged, disinfected the Republican Party of these people who are Israel's main weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I got the receipts. Salon Magazine, why neocons really hate Donald Trump. He is hastening the decline of the American empire. Trump's neoconservative critics have liberal fans now, but their real cause is saving American imperialism. Here's another headline, Newsweek, sorry, neocons, Republican voters are done with your foreign policy. Washington Post, neoconservatives loathe Donald Trump. They hated him. He hated them. They're gone. There ain't a single one left. So again, if Trump is some kind of Zionist puppet, he's not a very good one.
Mhm.
He killed the ADL and he killed the neocons. Here they go.
They're all gone.
Neoconservatives. Bye-bye. Thanks to Commander Trump. No doubt
Absolutely.
about
They did it all through those executive orders and the covert takedown of the media. This is actually something that I talked about on a recent show. You know, so many people, including myself, wanted we wanted to see the military just storm in with their guns and literally
Yeah.
do a hostile takeover of mainstream media. But once again, you attack through the front door,
Yeah.
or do you have the opposite approach, the executive orders, and then, as you pointed out, using, for example, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, that whole situation, using one man's, taking all their money and using it to purchase Twitter and all of these things and change the face of mainstream media. And you did a brilliant job explaining that on News Treason, how everything has shifted with the big tech moguls, everybody's supporting Trump, the New York Post headline, everything is coming up Trump.
Yeah.
And of course, you know the New York Times better than anybody. You write the anti-New York Times, and you've been able to track this this very tangible difference in how Trump is being covered. And so that's how they've done it, folks. They haven't gone in guns blazing the way we wanted them to. But this, as we can see, is far more effective. No more never Trumpers. The mainstream media has shifted. Everybody is, like you say, they put in the mild criticism stuff just to keep up the credibility, the street cred, as you call it. But overall, they've dialed down the intensity, and now everything is starting to be either neutral or pro-Trump.
Yep.
And compare that to 2016 or 2015, or even his first term in office.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go ahead here. Let's see what we got.
Okay, regular weapon of warfare number 3, AIPAC. Now, this is something people aren't aware of, but it's been slowly unfolding over the last 9 years. AIPAC is not what it used to be. And a big part of the reason for that, well, first of all, I believe the organization has been subjected to Executive Order 13818.
Yeah.
And their money's been taken and it's being funneled to Republican causes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, when Donald Trump came onto the scene and with his hardcore America First rhetoric, which people associate with so-called anti-Semitism, because Charles Lindbergh had the America First Committee, and he said the Jewish interests are pushing us into this war. So that's very sensitive to that term, America First. And he called his whole campaign America First. Hard right-wing rhetoric. So what happened is the Bolshevistic Jewish element, they went nuts when they hear this. They despised him. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm sorry?
Supposed to be Israel first, not America first. According to that.
Yeah. Right. They don't want to hear America First, but it's even deeper than just the Israel issue because they associate it just with anti-Semitism and right-wing politics. But meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, he's saying, I love Israel. I love Israel. I'll do anything for Israel. I'll move the embassy, blah, 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 blah. Now you have another element of AIPAC adored Donald Trump. Okay? Because the organization and Jews in general are not monolithic. You've got a hardcore left-wing Marxist Bolshevik element, and you've got other guys who are just businessmen. They want a better business environment, lower taxes. So like on things like economics or politics, even culture, it's not necessarily they're all Bolsheviks, you understand? But with AIPAC, the glue that held them together was, of course, Israel. But now what do you do? You've got this Bolshevik Marxist element, just despises the man for everything, his right-wing positions. And then you've got this other element, they love him because he's gone over the top with his I Love Israel routine. It was a civil war within AIPAC. That's a fact. You can read about that in mainstream media. A lot of people left the organization. They said, this has become a pro-Trump organization. I can't support them.
Yeah.
And
because a lot of these individuals are not so ideologically driven by the Zionist New World Order deep state agenda, like you pointed out. A lot of these individuals are roped into that, but their interests are really just similar to everyone else's. They just want to have a good business environment, be able to profit, have a nice life, etc.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
They were pro-Israel, so they like Trump. So the leftist stuff didn't bother. But that was a perfect divide and conquer maneuver. Okay. So that's a fact. There's a bitter divide within the AIPAC. Also, through the attacks on AIPAC coming from the left, which is the controlled left. All right, this is a little nuanced here. It's a whole nother subject. The White Hats have their own left wing. I am convinced of that. And they use that to do certain dirty work that Trump can't do. So you had all these attacks coming on AIPAC. And so now within the American left, a lot of them are anti-Israel. So the American left is divided. Okay. So this has had the effect.
So they're using divide and conquer in the reversal of that.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to.
Right. Because what did AIPAC just do? And I believe this is under White Hat control. They just funded the takedown of some left-wing politicians. Okay. So now the left is like, what are you doing? AIPAC. So there's a war between the extreme left and AIPAC. And some of the extreme left people leading it, like AOC and Omar, I believe are White Hats. Yeah, I've said from the beginning, I always believed AOC and that crowd, the squad, were White Hats because they're embarrassing the left and they openly attack Israel and they get away with it. And they created a civil war now within the left wing, where part of it now is anti-Israel and the other part is pro-Israel. And you've even got Jews on Jews fighting each other over this issue.
Wow. That's brilliant.
Headline, New Republic, how Donald Trump exposed AIPAC. The rapturous reception for the Republican frontrunner revealed the gap between AIPAC and the majority of American Jews. This goes back to 2016. Here's a more recent one. Jewish Americans oppose AIPAC's influence as a threat to democracy. Okay. Times of Israel. Trump. Israel literally owned Congress a decade ago. Today, it's the opposite. Trump said that. He's bragging about it. And he was attacked by the ADL when he said that. He said they used to own the Congress. Now they don't. And then he qualified it. He said, and it's a shame. He didn't mean it's a shame. He's bragging that they don't own Congress anymore. And that's a fact. They've lost their power. Now listen to this excerpt. This is Times of Israel. It's quoting Trump, actually. The biggest change I have seen in Congress is Israel literally owned Congress. You understand that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. And today it's the opposite. What is the message that he's saying? He's saying Israel owned our Congress. Pat Buchanan was destroyed because he once said the U.S. Congress is Israeli occupied territory. And here you have Trump saying the same thing, but he's getting away with it. He goes on to say, he says, you have between AOC and Omar and these people that really hate Israel. They hate it with a passion, but they're controlling Congress. And Israel is not a force in Congress anymore. I mean, it's just amazing. I've never seen such a change.
And then he bemoans
AOC, Omar, that Rashid lady, there's a bunch of them. The squad, the hard left core, they're White Hats. Oh, yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow, that's a big red pill for a lot of people. I've suspected similar about AOC, but I never actually thought about the entire squad there. But it makes perfect sense to implement this strategy of divide and conquer within the Democratic Party, and we can see it's beautiful.
I mean, this chick was a bartender, comes out of nowhere in the Democrat primary, defeats, I can't remember his name now. He was one of the biggest they're talking about this guy as a successor to Pelosi. Huge. And she beats him. How did that happen? And this the very next day after she beat this guy in the primary, there's Trump tweeting, "Oh boy, good riddance to that guy." What the guy was from Queens, I think, was Trump's home district. Trump hated him and he hated Trump. Hardcore Trump hater. AOC took him out.
It was Crowley. Was that his name? Was it Joe Crowley?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I had to look it up. I couldn't remember his name. But yeah.
Crowley. AOC took him out. And then she starts saying all this. She constantly says these stupid things. She puts on the Biden Act. Only instead of senility, it's insanity and stupidity.
Yeah.
And there was like one criticism from a liberal newspaper saying, you almost have to wonder if she's working for Trump, because she created so much chaos, her and her girls, and they start attacking Israel and they get away with it. And so they created this division on the left. This is a white hat operation, I'm telling you. So
there
you have Trump. Here you have Trump. I love Israel. And here you have the Squad causing all this trouble. And then you have Trump. Boy, the Squad, they really hate Israel. Shame on them.
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
Yeah. He's using them as proxies, just like, I've talked about this in the context even of fake Biden, with his policy decisions about Israel and arming them and all of these sorts of things, that he's using Biden, that the White Hats have been using Biden to implement certain very unpopular policies amongst the Republican Party, specifically the evangelicals, like we talked about. But they've been able to do this, and Trump still can stand back with that plausible deniability and be like, "Oh, this is such a bad thing," when he's actually directing traffic there. It's amazing.
It is. Yeah, AIPAC ran Congress, not anymore. It's a shame.
Yeah. See, if you know,
he sells it. He sells it so well. Nobody could do this job but him. He sells it so well.
He does. He does. Absolutely.
Here's another headline: New York Post. The Squad demonizes pro-Israel AIPAC. Democrat radicals face tough primaries, and they are lambasting the American Israel Public Affairs Committee for helping their opponents. Opinion piece. This is Haaretz, Israel newspaper, main news service. AIPAC is dying a slow death. Once the crucial amplifier of power and influence, they admit it. Once the crucial amplifier of power and influence for the U.S.-Israel relationship, AIPAC has lost its touch and is losing contact with its base. It is dying of a self-inflicted wound.
Oof.
Not a wound was inflicted by the master, the Godfather, and his agents in the Q operation. Mm-hmm. So, AIPAC.
Number 3.
Bye-bye. And thanks for the $100 million.
Oh, this is fantastic. All right. Yeah. Let's keep rolling here. I knew this was going to be insightful, but this is truly amazing. You're showing exactly how the White Hats implemented this divide and conquer strategy in the Democratic Party, and Trump actually puppeteering the entire thing.
That's right.
Amazing.
It's a Godfather. That's the logo of the Godfather movie, the puppet handle.
Puppet, yeah, right.
And I've been watching this unfold now for 6-7 years. So this is just like a summary I put together. This is all in my head, and but I felt it's important because you keep seeing this objection come up. Oh, Trump and Israel.
And how many?
140.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and how many people out there? This is just for the audience. How many people out there have you heard in their analysis talking about AOC and the Squad actually being White Hats? It's going to be a big red pill for a lot of people.
No, I called that from the very first week. I took so much abuse. So you're getting carried away. I said, no, look at this logically. She beat one of the biggest men in Congress in a primary.
28 years old. She was she wasn't even 30.
Yeah. I don't know. Did they rig the computers? Did they have some kind of ground game that they built for her? How does this happen? Mm-hmm. And then the way Trump just gloated about it the following day.
Mm-hmm.
Q Post 140. Now, by the way, all right, the next weapon is ISIS. Okay, mm-hmm. The next weapon to deactivate is ISIS. There's John McStain, executed on Trump's orders. By the way. Okay, anyone who reads the Q Post saw that one coming. Q told us in advance he was going to die, and then he died to the day. But there he is with ISIS. Or they call them the moderate rebels of Syria. No, Vladimir Putin says, how do you distinguish between a moderate rebel and an immoderate rebel? Now, these thugs were all funded, CIA, Mossad. There's McCain in Syria. Q Post 140. What if China, Russia, and others are coordinating with POTUS to eliminate the New World Order? Who controls several agencies within the US, EU, and abroad? I've said all along, Xi, Putin, Trump, working together.
Not a
Why
doubt.
is no such agency, that's NSA, so vital? Because they have all the secrets. But here's the relevant part. Enormous scale of events currently ongoing. Why is Russia helping to kill ISIS? This is not easy to accept nor believe. This very dangerous, they're all dangerous, weapon of irregular warfare, like I said, was used to destabilize any country that Israel wants to put a hit on. Okay?
Yeah, and justify a war and an invasion, which of course was exactly their agenda. That they needed this
Right.
terrorist force.
That's what they were doing. They're like, oh, this horrible ISIS, we got to go in. We can't allow this. So that was part of it. Meanwhile, ISIS is being used to topple Assad. Okay. But Russia, Iran, the Hezbollah of Lebanon, and it's amazing. It's like every day for years, ISIS, ISIS, ISIS. We don't hear about ISIS anymore. What happened to them? Why is Russia helping to go? Trump and Putin killed ISIS. It's that simple. Russia and Iran, they did it on the ground and from the air. But even more significant, their money disappeared. It evaporated. And they disbanded, not just in Syria, but throughout all the 40 countries they're in. Why don't we hear about ISIS anymore or Al Qaeda? Whatever happened to Islamic terrorism? They just went away. Why? I got the receipts. New York Times. Trump, this is 2017, did this very early, his third month in. Trump ends covert aid to Syrian rebels, it's ISIS, trying to topple Assad. It is right there. He ended it. This was the overt. Well, it's covert, yet it was known. It's a government program. He ended that. Then there's the executive orders. How much money was being funneled through illegal means? So they got no money. They're being bombed. They all went home. No more ISIS. Israel does not have ISIS anymore. Do you know what a deadly weapon that is? So the Israel Secret Intelligence Service that destabilized and terrorized so many countries and had the potential to draw the U.S. into a war to stop ISIS. Bye-bye.
And it's true that you also have to be able to interpret the headlines, like the one that you just mentioned. I mean, it really should have read, Trump cuts off U.S. support for ISIS or Trump defunds ISIS.
Yes.
If you know how to decode the headlines, that's exactly what you're looking at right there.
Right. Correct.
Absolutely. And once again, we see, ISIS, that conflict between the Zionists and the Russians that we've talked about. We did our show on the Crash Course New World Order, where we tracked that feud going back a very, very long time. And we're still seeing it play out today. It's incredible.
And he saved Assad. Assad remains in power. He's a good man in Syria, and Syria is rebuilding, and it's being recognized by all the other Arab countries. So that was he was number one on the hit list. They got Saddam, they got Gaddafi. Assad was next. They wanted him dead. But he's still there. He's still there. Trump did that. So you tell me, he's serving Israel? Why is Assad still in power?
There you go.
There we go. Epstein's Island. There they are. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. On the right, that's her daddy, Robert Maxwell, Israel's super spy. Like I said, he was buried in a place of highest honor in Jerusalem. All the ex-Mossad guys were there. And, this is going to come out. But we can only infer at this point who and how many powerful, big-name people were ensnared by this. And this goes way back. This might even connect to 9/11. If you wonder why so many people stood down and didn't say anything about 9/11, it could be because of stuff like this. But this is the art of mass blackmail. And it's the Epstein's Island. It's the New Mexico Ranch, the property in Florida, the property in New York, the NXIVM sex cult. And who knows how many other just, you could be a politician. You're away you're out of town. You're at a bar. Some nice girl just comes up, starts chatting you up. Okay? This is how they do it in the intelligence world. It's called the honeypot. Only this is with children. And the value to Israel must have been immense with this, to have someone of Ghislaine Maxwell's stature running it. Q posts a picture of Ghislaine with Nathan Rothschild, Nat Rothschild. Okay. So, let me see. Who was president when this island was shut down? Who was head of the Department of Justice, which oversees the FBI, when this wicked place was shut down and raided?
That would be Sessions.
Jeff Sessions. Trust Sessions. Oh, and that's a beautiful one. Sessions was like the Grim Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
He got rid of so many deep staters at the DOJ, the FBI. Q listed them all and called Jeff Sessions a hero. Okay. Mm-hmm. And on his way out the door on his very last day, he shut down Epstein's Island.
Yeah.
But while that's going on, to conceal that, Trump threw up the smoke bomb.
Yep.
Oh, this Jeff Sessions, worst mistake I ever made. He's horrible. He's killing me. Why is he letting Bob Mueller? It was another white hat. Why is he letting Bob Mueller investigate me? Shut it down. It's horrible. Jeff Sessions, no good. It was so bad that at one point Chuck Schumer took to the floor of the U.S. Senate and said, Mr. President, if you touch this man, we're going to investigate you.
Yeah. That's how good of a showman Trump is.
Oh, what a show. And they're so stupid they didn't see it coming. And on his last day, he shut that down. And then they raided it. So all of Israel's blackmail dirt on God knows how many people, not only is that not effective anymore, totally neutralized, it's flipped the other way. The military tribunals have it. The investigators have it. So now they can blackmail these people, in essence, or arrest them. Some of the lower level ones, they could flip them.
To flip them, yeah. Put them under.
It's the equivalent of a turnover in football where you fumble on the opponent's 1 yard line. The guy picks it up, runs it back 100 yards. You lost 7 points, and they gained 7. So it's such an enormous, devastating play. It's a 14-point swing. Mm-hmm. That's what this is like. They had all this dirt. You shut it down. Now you have all the dirt on the same people. Okay. Mm-hmm. You think if Hillary Clinton had been elected, this island would have been shut down? Okay. This nasty she-devil was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Her nephew had a job in Hillary Clinton's State Department overseeing the Libya operation. Come on now. Mm-hmm. So this is an enormous, incalculable loss to the Zionist Israeli mafia, the great international swindle. Hitler said in 1920s, that's what Israel will be one day if they get a headquarters for their international swindle. It was run out of there, and they lost this island. Donald Trump did that. Nobody else. So,
yeah.
Epstein, Maxwell Island. You could throw in NXIVM with the Bronfman sisters, another one.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Gone. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. And,
we're running out of weapons.
Absolutely. And it occurred to me when you were just talking about Jeff Sessions and the smoke screen that Trump threw up for him. It's interesting. He's going after Christopher Wray a lot now in the wake of the so-called assassination attempt. Yeah. You told us to trust Wray. So could he be operating in a very similar manner?
Right. Oh, yeah.
No, I happen to believe he is.
If Q tells you to trust somebody, trust somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that because, Q said, like, Q's my guru, I worship Q. No, it's the playbook.
That's right.
That's been established already. So we have the playbook. Why are you questioning what's in the playbook?
Yeah, especially when it continually proves.
So many of these people, when Trump goes after somebody, it could mean one of two things. He's a bad guy, but he also could be he's giving him street cred, smokescreen. Mm-hmm. Chris Wray, Jeff Sessions, Bob Mueller, Ron DeSantis. How many times have we seen this?
Over and over again. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Future proves past. The drops, I think, at this stage of the game, if you've been paying attention and doing your homework, it's all there. And you can see that this is the roadmap. you might even say it's the script of the movie, or at least hints as close as we're going to get to the direction the movie's going to go. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the next scene, but Q tells us who the good guys are.
Right.
And if he says, I agree with you, if he says to trust Sessions, trust Ray, trust these individuals, in the absence of certainty, I'm going to believe what Q told us, because it continually.
This is a massive military operations. I mean, we talked about that article from Newsweek, the 60,000 secret agents.
That's right.
And then beyond that, so this is deep. So many of these players, and I am absolutely convinced that the so-called far left is now part of the Q operation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're accomplishing very important objectives that could not be done from the far right.
That's right.
Okay.
Not through the front door.
Yeah.
Reestablished. Absolutely. All right.
Oh, boy, one weapon is just more powerful than the next.
These are the pastors.
Christian Zionists. I call it the paid pastors. These guys are on Mossad payroll, and there's a lot of them who are true believers, but this guy, John Hagee, just a despicable human being, warmonger. You call yourself a preacher? This guy wants to bomb the whole Middle East. And there he is with Bibi. It's called Christians and Jews United for Israel is the organization. And these people are quite fanatical. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm very pro-Christian, pro-religion, but this is not Christianity. This is like a perversion that comes from the Schofield Bible of more than 100 years ago. This guy was a con artist. He makes a trip to London, makes a trip to New York, comes out, I'm a new man. I found Jesus and I'm writing a new Bible. And this Bible took hold. And on this issue, it has really deeply deluded and misled. I don't know. They say 30 million Christians. It's not just in the deep South or the heartland. Like even here in New Jersey, you go to some of these small local Protestant Jews. I know some of these people. They worship Israel. They fly the Israeli flag at their church.
That's right.
And this is an enormous base, particularly in the Republican Party. And you have to tread very careful. If you're even perceived as not being totally working in the interest of Israel, they take that as a sacrilege. Okay? And these paid pastors, they'll activate these lunatics on you. Big problem. But you have to respect that. It's a dangerous animal.
Mm-hmm.
So how did Trump handle this one? He went around the pastors. He marketed himself as the most pro-Christian candidate ever. And I'm not saying it's not totally sincere, but he went over the top with it. He says, we're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and he did. Okay, we're going to put prayer back in the school. Now, you're allowed to pray in the schools if it's voluntary now. And he also the over-the-top I love Israel rhetoric. That too fooled the paid pastors. All these paid pastors endorsed him. And then their flocks loved him. So he did with the evangelical masses the same as he did in Israel. Remember I said earlier, he's more popular with the Israeli people than Netanyahu is? Similarly, he's just as popular, if not more so, with the evangelical base as the paid pastors are. So what does that mean? When they try to activate these paid pastors against them, and they did, Jeffords, Vanderplaat, there's a number of them who started coming out against Trump. Once they figured out this game that we've been talking about, it's too late. He took their flocks from them, okay? Receipts, Associated Press. Jesus is their savior, but Trump is their candidate. Ex-president's backers say he shares their faith and values. Newsweek. Pastors warn of Donald Trump's takeover of the church. Too late. Too late, guys. You caught on too late. Trump's shift on Israeli settlements fulfills the wish list of his evangelical base. Here's Trump selling Bibles for Lee Greenwood. Okay. They love him. The evangelicals love him. And that's what he's going to continue. I love Israel. I love it. He's going to continue. You ain't taking that base from him. These paid pastors. Neutralized. Bye-bye.
Hey, since we're on the topic, I might as well ask you. You've probably seen the clip that's been getting a lot of attention about, Trump saying,
I already know what you're saying.
the whole thing about I'm not a Christian,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
which to me, I watched the video, and listen, what I heard was I'm a Christian. It sounds very similar. It's almost like the mind can when a phrase sounds very similar.
Yeah.
Mind can play tricks on you there. But I think it was fairly obvious. He was pointing at himself and saying, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
But then he went on to say that in another 4 years, it's all going to be all fixed. You're not even going to have to vote anymore. What's your take on that? I'm sure folks.
I've gotten like a dozen emails on that, and I recognize these as what they are. These are attacks from infiltrators in our midst, black pill infiltrators. And you can always recognize it when something just comes out of nowhere like this. I got like a dozen emails already on this subject. What does this mean, Mike? First of all, it sounds like he said I'm a. Why would he say I'm not after saying he is a Christian 100 times all these years?
Exactly.
He could have done this on purpose just to smoke more people out, just to make I don't know. But it's so absurd, I mean, why on earth would he say I'm not a Christian? Or what are you trying to say?
In front of that crowd to be like, my beautiful Christians, I love you so much. I'm not one, but
I'm not one, but I like you guys.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that
he was either deliberately ambiguous, just to see how these people would react, because they're out there. Because right now, the only line of attack they have is and you see them all over Twitter. They pretend to be like us, but they keep attacking Trump from the right, saying, "Oh, he's a globalist. He's the Antichrist. He works for the Jews." So that's their trick. I should mention, in the early 1920s, Hitler sued and won. He sued a Jewish Marxist newspaper that was putting out stories that he's funded by Jewish interests in America. And he sued them, and he actually won. So that's a tactic. They use that to create trouble in our midst. And I've been getting all morning. Hey, Mike, what did Trump mean by this? Listen, man, he's our guy. Either trust the plan or you don't. Don't be distracted by anything negative. And every day is something new. Every day is something new. But this is absurd. You can't even tell what he's saying. It doesn't make sense for him to say not. And you're ignoring all the other things he said. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And there's a possibility he might have deliberately did that just to smoke out these people.
Do you think that's why he said that, made the comment about not having to vote in 4 years?
As far as like not having to vote, that's very interesting.
Yeah, that part kind of, made me scratch my head a little bit more than the other. I mean, the Christian thing I knew immediately.
Yeah.
But that
I don't know. Maybe we're going to be under a military government for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't mind that.
Could be.
We go back to mass democracy before everybody's re-educated. We're just going to backslide. So
I think
I frankly don't mind if he rules as a dictator for a while.
Yeah, well, I also think it's possible that he could be talking about the way that people are going to be voting. Like he said, to get up or to go out and vote, and in 4 years you're not going to have to do that anymore. So is he talking about maybe a future system, a blockchain where we vote on our phones? Is he also basically pointing to the idea of, look, the country's going to be unified, and we're not going to have a two-party system.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you don't want to vote, it's not even going to matter, because basically everybody's going to be on the same page. I mean, he could have meant a lot of stuff.
I don't get alarmed at anything. I mean,
No.
the plan is on track. So like every time there's a new comment,
don't let it throw you.
They're talking about, what about Larry Fink? He says, is Larry Fink going to be in the ministry? Do we know Larry Fink is alive? Do we know that Larry Fink hasn't been switched? I mean, stop worrying about all this stuff.
Exactly.
They got it. We got it.
Absolutely. It's like you said, we're film critics. We're not, necessarily,
That's right.
trying to plot out.
You can be sure if something is said, something is done,
it's for a reason.
we don't understand, or maybe superficially upsetting, give it time. It will fit into the plot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't let it scramble your eggs too much, because that's what happens. People will sit down and they'll watch a podcast like this one, and we lay it out. Everything makes sense. We convince folks, or reinforce that idea that we're watching a movie, and then we have a couple of more developments and the informational frenzy and the emotions and all of that stuff, and the next thing you know, everybody's questioning everything again. And that's the same tactic that's been deployed over and over and over. That's why I've been hammering this idea that, look, if Q said the choice to know is going to be yours.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, applies not just to to all the evil out there and who's responsible for it, but in terms of how the operation is being run, especially toward the climax. Like you said, the end is not for everyone. What does that really mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's, this is what we're talking about right here. If you recognize that we're watching a movie, a scripted movie,
right,
and you don't have to get worried, you don't have to get all anxious.
Right.
Sure, you can ask the questions, you can, speculate about stuff and all that, but you don't have to get so emotionally invested that it starts to cloud your logic and your reason. And the next thing you know, you're way
worried.
Or
worried. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
my goodness. The former vice president of the United States was rendered, tried, and executed, replaced with an imposter in a fake White House for 4 years. And you're worried that we're not going to pull this off?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just because you can't necessarily understand everything as it's happening, but you have to recognize that's the way that the plan was constructed that way to begin with, so that nobody would be able to figure it out.
Listen, the competition phase is long gone of good guys versus bad guys. All of this now is just normie awakening tactics.
That's right.
Okay, because you're dealing with a public that's severely brainwashed. And what did they say? You can't wake up a sleepwalker too suddenly.
Yeah.
Get startled, he could fall and get hurt.
Yeah.
That's all this is now. Okay. So when you start asking these, what does this mean? What does it mean? I don't understand. You're not getting a point. Okay. It means something. So don't worry. Bad guys are gone. We're just waking up. We're waking up the normies, because you don't want to remove the bad guys and then still have the country divided.
That's right.
Two-pronged. Get rid of the bad guys, then reenact what they did as if it's live, and get the country united. That's critical.
Yeah, and it's the reverse of the frog in the pot scenario there. Like, you don't want the frog to recognize that they're being unboiled, as they say.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because the minute you get them, it's classic human psychology. The minute you recognize that somebody is attempting to influence you or manipulate you or push you in a certain direction, your defenses go up. And that's exactly what the white hats don't want. In the same way that everybody was programmed over many decades without even realizing it, they're doing the opposite. They're doing it in reverse.
Right.
It's beautiful. And once you see it that way, and you can kind of let go, you can drop that weight of having to figure out every single new development as it happens. Or what does this mean? Why did this happen? Where is this going? And I can say from personal experience, I spent the first couple of years of my show doing exactly that, just constantly speculating. But what does this mean? What does that mean? Yes. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but eventually, once you get to the point where you recognize that we're watching a movie and you can see everything proof and going back to the drops, and of course, all of the comms from Trump and his surrogates, it all clicks into place, and you realize I don't have to figure all this out, because it's going to come out. But the trajectory of the operation has never swayed off course, in my opinion.
Right.
The details, they remain a mystery. They're supposed to. It's fog of war. That's the entire intent.
Yeah.
But when you look at the fruit, and that's really what you're doing today, is like this, beyond all the optics. If you look at the fruit of what the white hats and Trump have done, in this case pertaining to the Zionists in Israel, you can see very clearly who's in charge and what's happening.
Yeah.
Beyond all the optics, beyond the smoke screen.
Totally in charge. What part of Patriots are in control that people don't understand? I mean, Patriots are in control.
People don't want to believe it. And this is also another point that I made recently, just briefly. Q told us, be careful who you follow. And most of the time people think of that as, there's nefarious people in the movement, infiltrators, or people who only in it for the money and so forth. But I think there's another level to that, which is well-meaning people who don't understand the plan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
and
right.
going to confuse the crap out of you if you're listening to them and they're not rooting their analysis in the drops and on all the comms centered around the Q team.
But more importantly, and this is easier said than done, is people need to be stop following, meaning stop outsourcing your thinking to anybody and begin to learn the mathematical process of right thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, logical deduction, recognizing fallacies. Because we all have the same ability. God put it in us to figure stuff out on our own. There's a reason why after this fake assassination attempt, I already knew that you and Dave and Mark knew what was going on.
100%.
I didn't have to go and say, let me see what these guys think. Because you guys know the math. And once you know the mathematical formula, you're going to arrive at the correct conclusion independently of each other.
That's
so
right.
If you find yourself like, let me see what happened. Let me go see what Mike says. Let me go see what Patriot's saying and try to form a consensus. You're going back to the same old bad habits you had when you were a normie.
That's right.
So you've got to use it. It's there. It's just that it's atrophied because that's the way we've been trained not to think by the school system, by the media. But if you actually think critically, what makes sense, what fits, what doesn't, put the pieces together, might take a little practice. It's like somebody who's never done anything with their body, goes to the gym, wants to be a bodybuilder. It's take a while.
Yeah.
But if you make that commitment, that should be your objective, to get to the point where you don't need anybody to tell you what to think about things. You can just see it on your own.
There's a reason that Q mentioned logic 177 times in the drop.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that was by accident. And look, I mean, what it came down to for me, very simple as far as the assassination thing. We don't have to get into it, but
Right.
the two truths, the two narratives can't coexist. You can't tell me that you believe in the operation and you trust the plan that is entirely centered around POTUS being 100% insulated. We were told that in multiple different drops. And then at the same time, believe that this whole thing was organically unfolding and that Trump actually isn't protected by the military. It is a no-brainer. I didn't even have to know any of the other details.
Yeah. It's incongruent.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, the media. Here we go.
The fake news.
The big time.
Okay. You don't take this apparatus down, even without the other stuff that is already destroyed. They can still do a lot of damage.
You bet.
Headlines. This one's easy. We already talked about this. The Trump and the Q operation, this was a primary objective. We're going to go head on at the media. It was so refreshing because, back in the day, 70s, 80s, I remember always watching it. They would have some Republican, conservative come on these talk shows, and they would just go at them like piranhas.
Mm-hmm.
And he just stand there trying to explain himself, apologize. I'm like, call him out. Call him a freaking liar right to his face. They're not journalists. They're there to attack you. Why are you engaging in debate? Change the subject from whatever it is you're talking about to you being professional liars.
Mm-hmm.
It always frustrated me. I always wish somebody would come along and take the fight directly to the media. And that's exactly what Trump did.
Mm-hmm.
Headline here. Fox News. Trump calls ex-CNN boss Jeff Zucker human scum. That's how he went after these people. He named so many of the big media people. Sulzberg called them out. Fake news, press conference.
Yeah, he coined the term.
News. You're fake news. And he understands marketing. You got to repeat. Fake news, fake
That's
news,
right.
fake news.
Mm-hmm.
CNN, Chris Cillizza. They're admitting it, complaining about it. Here is Donald Trump's most lasting, damaging legacy. His relentless bashing of the media as fake news and his insistence that Republicans tune out all forms of mainstream media. So they even acknowledged that the enormous, irreparable damage that Trump did to fake news. Okay? Now it's gone beyond that. Now the White House straight out control fake news.
Oh, yeah.
And like I've been saying, you any day of the week, you pick up the New York Times, and they're embarrassing Israel, attacking Israel, humiliating Israel. Okay. And the whole media has kind of changed on Israel. It's no longer untouchable. Trump engineered this. And now it's more than just having discredited it. They outright control it, and they're embedding stuff that they want the public to know.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. The same thing that we said about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Mainstream media. Bye-bye. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And the Q team.
Well, it was interesting to me as you were talking, and it kind of clicked that the same thing I was saying about Trump being the battering ram that just eliminated this whole notion of political correctness. He also did the same thing with the mainstream media by calling them fake news. But at the same time, as you point out, respecting this as a very powerful weapon and knowing that, yes, on the one hand, it's kind of a complex approach. He came after them. He took the fight directly to them. But he also, and the White Hats also knew that they couldn't just go in there guns blazing and take over the military, because that would completely backfire at the same time. So they had to infiltrate it using the executive orders, as you've very well described, to be able to flip mainstream media, because he's gotten people to recognize that it's fake news. The people that are awake and, have some idea of what's going on, but all the normies out there, they're still programmed and they still believe the stuff that they see on mainstream media. Yeah. So it's almost like they're discrediting the media, but they're also using it as a tool to red pill people at the same time.
That's right.
Kind of like a two-pronged attack.
Yeah.
The way I see it anyhow.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And but with regards to this topic in particular, it's clear to anybody that Israel has lost its protection. Every day you see these crisis actor images coming out of Gaza. It's just a constant humiliation of Israel. Their position is weak. And then Trump has even said this. He's actually starting to get more overt now in his rhetoric. He says, boy, this is really making Israel look bad on the international stage. They've lost so much. Mm-hmm. And indeed they have. It is now socially impermissible to criticize Israel. Think about it.
That's a sea change.
Didn't happen by accident.
That is a sea change right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we know
which leads us, these 7 weapons all deactivated, cumulatively makes the activation of the 8th weapon impossible. The 8th weapon being the use of the United States as your hitman.
That's right.
Your proxy, your Frankenstein monster. Go get him. Go get him. Go get him. Those lovely images are from Iraq in 2003. That is never going to happen again. The U.S. will never fight another war for Israel again, neither conventionally nor by proxy, as they did in Syria. It's over. And not only is the U.S. out and never coming back in, headline, Al Jazeera, China, Iran, and Russia stage joint naval drills in the Gulf of Oman. Trump engineered this. He left China and Russia and Iran as the protectors of the region.
Yep.
Turkey is in the mix too now.
Yes, big time.
What's Israel going to do? They can't even beat Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. What are they going to do without the United States? U.S. is out. Who's the anti-war candidate all along? Who's the pro-peace guy? In spite of the rhetoric, it was Trump. Trump engineered this. And I'll show you articles in Council of Foreign Relations. They even complain about this. Oh, the U.S. is no longer engaged around the world militarily. We're losing our influence. So the use of the U.S. military, not only as a proxy war against these Arab nations, but also as a force that could instigate a World War III situation. It's gone. Gone. Okay. That's all 8. Now, somebody tell me, what does Israel have left?
Now, it doesn't seem like they got much.
Not much. And yet, you will continue to hear Trump say, I stand with Israel. I love with Israel. you know, on one of the, I did a show on this topic, and one of the commentators, he says, this reminds me of that scene from When Mars Attacks. That silly movie where the Martians are going around, they're blowing everything up, but they're announcing on their loudspeakers, I come in peace.
Come in peace.
We come in peace. Boom. We come in peace. Boom. That's what Trump's doing. Taking away all Israel's weapons. I love Israel. Boom. I love Israel. Boom.
Yep.
And it's not against Israeli people. They're mostly normies themselves. It's this criminal regime, the Netanyahu crowd, and the international headquarters of the New World Order. And they're all gone, by the way. That's not Netanyahu meeting with Biden.
Absolutely.
If it ain't Biden, it ain't Netanyahu. If Biden's a fake, all the people he's meeting with are fake. Think about it logically. Okay?
Yep.
They all been executed. This is an international military operation. This is so big. I just did a piece on the Paris Olympic ceremonies. Okay? That's all.
I was going to ask you about that, your comments on that. Yeah, so tell us about that. I mean, they got the French military. The French military, they raised the Olympic flag upside down. Yeah. Oops. Now, militaries, they don't screw up like that. They get screamed at if their shoelace is untied, okay? They don't screw up like that. Just like the inauguration, when Biden was inaugurated, 12 minutes early? That kind of stuff. The control, this is international military power. So the French military, patriots there, Germany, Britain, Russia, China, mostly irregular, psychological, intelligence, communications, warfare on a level that just defies the imagination. Everything is a movie. Everything is a movie. Olympics is a movie. What's going on in Gaza is a movie. That's why I didn't get upset about it. As offensive as it is on the surface to somebody who's a Christian, if you recognize that this is a white hat production and you recognize exactly what they're attempting to do here by having this guy's, junk hanging out on TV while they're reenacting the Last Supper with drag queens.
Yep.
If you can see it. And then of course there was the subsequent blackout, and there was the only thing lit up was the church. I'm sure you probably saw that one.
Yep.
I
did a whole article on that. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Celine Dion, that's not her.
Of course not. She was one of the biggest witches of all.
She has stiff person syndrome. Definitely ill. Lady Gaga, she's dead. I mean, the whole thing is just so...
it's obvious. It's so obvious.
It's obvious if you can overcome what's known as incredulity bias, incredulity fallacy.
Yeah.
If you fall into the line and think, oh, that's crazy. Okay, it's hard to overcome, but that's a psychological objection. It's not based on fact.
Normal bias.
The only things impossible in this world are in the physical realm or the chemical realm. Okay, but when you talk about an operation in human dynamics, nothing's impossible. And this is the world's militaries, what they can do. 60,000 secret agents. That's only a fraction of it.
A fraction.
So that's what's going on. And to kind of add a little bit more receipts to what I just presented, these are some random headlines to consider. Beautiful stuff. Again, Haaretz, Israel. Trump lashes out at mega donor Sheldon Adelson for not giving enough to his campaign. Mm-hmm. Republican officials had to smooth things over with mega donor after Trump lashed out at him. This is 1 year before he died. That's interesting. He died. He was old, but you have to wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump, in recent years, towards the end of his administration, in recent years, he's feeling his oats. He's able to get on the phone and scream at Sheldon Adelson, give me more money. So now the black pill, they're complaining that his widow just gave $100 million to the Trump PACs or whatever, okay? That's Executive Order 13818. She ain't giving nothing. She's going to give money to Trump after everything I went through. He ain't doing nothing for the Zionist crazies.
Mm-hmm.
The Adelsons and the Netanyahus were thick as thieves. And what does Trump say about Netanyahu? This was several years ago. Headline, Axios, Trump blasts Netanyahu for disloyalty. F-U-C-K him.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's criticism of Israel's Netanyahu drew strong condemnation from GOP rivals. Trump, this is from the Times of Israel. I thought the Israelis would do anything for peace, but I found that not to be true. This is a few weeks ago, last month, ABC News. Trump appears to blame Israel for anti-Semitism, saying Israel made a very big mistake and is losing a lot of support. So now he's becoming a little bit more overt.
Things that he
Built up
couldn't have said.
all the street cred, okay?
Mm-hmm. These are things he couldn't have said back in 20.
Oh, no. But now, can't touch him. He's Commander Trump. So
Bingo.
that's the deal.
Bingo.
He has captured the very dangerous animal, Michael Corleone style. Can't nobody refute me on this.
Absolutely. I love it. And, it's all about, you were talking about the propaganda machine and how that feeds into the wars, and the high ground in any war is always the hearts and minds of the people. And that's exactly what we've seen throughout the course of this, really the entire Trump era, but in this presentation that you put on this morning, how they've been able to do this behind the scenes to shift the hearts and the minds. Because at the end of the day, I think that's why Trump is still saying these things. That's why he's still up there saying, oh, I love Israel, I support Israel, and I stand with Israel and all that, because that shift, that ideological shift hasn't been made with the masses yet. Now, how they're actually going to get there remains to be seen. How in this movie is it going to play out? How does Israel actually get taken down? We'll have to wait and see. That's speculation. I don't know if you want to, offer any thoughts along those lines, but until that ideological shift takes place, Trump still has to use that as cover.
Yes.
So,
he does. And it's not just the evangelicals, even though there's tens of millions of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just the American public in general. I would say
greenwashed.
80%. You ask them, oh, Israel, our greatest ally. Oh, Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. I love it. So so he has to keep saying this.
Mm-hmm.
But listen to what his proxies are saying now. Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens. They're not playing that game. So it's like you use them, then you got the squad on the left. Okay. Meanwhile, you keep your hands clean. But ultimately, I think Netanyahu will go down. And I don't know, maybe Israel might emerge as a single nation with Jews and Arabs with equal rights. It's like a single country. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we got this.
It's going to be interesting how to handle 9/11 because
yes,
it's delicate because they don't want to turn the whole world against the Jews per se. Okay. But at the same time, this was a Mossad operation.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
This is my book, by the way, and it's doing very well on Amazon. If people keep buying this and giving them out, it's going to help push the rankings up. Normies are stumbling across this on Amazon. Very exciting. Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job, debunking the official story in just 1 hour by MS King. It's also available on my website, but I prefer people get these on Amazon. That's the other one, Crash Course NWO, because it helps the rankings. Amazon's loosening up. So if you push things up to search rankings, we start to get normies and newbies stumble across it rather than just preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
But that's going to be interesting because it's a total Mossad operation. And Trump, he's got the 9/11 war paint on his True Social avatar. 9/11 Truth is coming out.
I think that's going to be the shift right there.
Yeah.
I've long suspected. I've asked myself that question over and over. How are they going to red pill the American people specifically, but the entire world about Israel, about the Zionists, etc.? And I think 9/11 might be exactly that ticket.
And what's interesting, and I'm not making a big conjecture here because it's just data, but Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, who's been relentless now for 22 years, God bless him. I wonder if he's a white hat, frankly. But he's made some interesting posts on his Twitter linking October 7th to 9/11. And so maybe now consider this. Suppose it comes out that October 7th, which was fake, the Hamas coming in on power gliders, but whatever. Suppose it's blamed on Mossad as a false flag. Okay. Well, that will piss off the people of Israel, piss off Jews in general. But then you could link October 7th to 9/11. So what have you done? Now you've created a buffer. So you're not saying, oh, you Jews did this.
Yeah.
Which is not going to sell. Two, this element, this criminal element, the Netanyahu crowd did this. So now you get Jews on your side. So maybe the October 7th in due time will segue into this. I don't know.
That makes a lot.
I don't see how you could blow open 9/11 and still pretend that Mossad had nothing to do with it. And another positive sign is Candace Owens, who I absolutely believe is a white hat operation. She's all over the dancing Israelis and all the Israel links to 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
So that's also a good indicator. When you see these kind of people putting out that kind of info, it means that the white hats want that out. But it's got to come out, in the right way. It's got to be done intelligently and a little gently because of what we're dealing with.
Absolutely. And, we can see, I think that's brilliant, actually, the exposure of Mossad through the October 7th event, because we've seen polls come out of the mainline papers, many of which you've referenced today, Haaretz, the Times of Israel, that a majority of the Israeli people recognize that this is an inside job, that there's no way that could have happened. The official narrative is impossible when they can detect a mosquito going across the border.
Right.
The Israelis know, and they have a lot of pride in that, in their border and the fortification of their armed forces. They knew immediately that this story just didn't make sense. So if that can implicate Mossad as being this criminal element working for the Zionists, I think that's what they have to do, is they have to sort of define this criminal element within Israel as being a separate entity in order to then bridge that gap to 9/11 truth and blow the whole thing wide open.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on it. But wow, what a great
that would be a way to do it. That would be the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Jews taking the lead in it.
Right. Exactly. That's a huge thing as well. Being able to get the world to red pill the world, but not in the sense that you're painting a target on every person out there who's a Jew, because that obviously is not the end game here. It's exactly the opposite. So, but you're 100% on target, Mike. And
what did Bibi Netanyahu, this fake character speaking before the fake Congress, say? He made an interesting comment. He says, October 7th was 29 11s. I don't know what he meant by that. Maybe he's calculating per capita population. But he linked October 7th to 9/11.
Yeah, the actor playing Netanyahu.
And when you consider that he's an actor, though, doing that, you got to interpret that as a com.
You bet.
Richard Gage has been doing October 7th, 9/11 would be the perfect way to open up that avenue. You bust open October 7th. So you're false flagging the false flaggers. So you're using a fake false flag to segue into exposing the real false flag. It's complicated.
Yeah, kind of like the assassination attempt. I mean, it's the same basic paradigm that they're using in different contexts. But yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And we're going to have to see how it all unfolds. But at that point, when that shift has been made, then it's going to be very easy. The entire world is going to be behind getting rid of the Zionists in Israel. Right. Even though we believe it's probably
the White Hats, they're already whipping up rent-a-mobs in Israel. Big protests against Netanyahu.
Huge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be ideal if they hang him themselves for October 7th.
Yeah.
Hop, skip, and a jump to 9/11. And nobody can say anti-Semitism. Oh, it's not the Jews. It's this element.
Yeah. And I happen to believe there are white hats in the IDF that, probably could step forward as well, maybe perform some sort of an internal coup once this comes out, to avoid having, a huge regional war in the Middle East. Yeah. I've long sort of speculated about that, but I think we're on to something here, Mike.
Yeah.
I absolutely think we're on to something as usual. So, okay. So this has been an incredible conversation as usual. You've laid out some amazing analysis. You want to put an end cap on anything, or leave the folks with any final thoughts, and then just tell everyone about your website? I'll go ahead and pull it up just so everybody can see. realnewsandhistory.com. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, if you enjoyed my talk, you'll love my website, because my work is, you read it. It's clear, concise, brief, lots of pictures, it's almost like listening to a conversation. It comes alive. So that's what I specialize in. I don't get complicated. I just hit boom, boom, boom. So check out my site, and I'm listener supported because this amazing information that I present doesn't come out of the ether. I got to dig it up. So this is my full-time endeavor. So if you can throw me a few shekels, $5 a month, 10 a month, 20, whatever, according to your means, that would help. You know, in due time, I'd like to get an assistant. There's so much out there to discover. It's only because I have the time to do it that I could bring to you what I brought today. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, you know, you're supporting the cause, not me.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Most of the content is free. There's books and PDFs. $29 gets you the whole package, or you just do the monthly. You get the whole package that way. I've got some of the books back on Amazon. You can get the books through the site, but these two in particular, again, Crash Course NWO. We did a whole show on that.
Yes, we
And then
did.
Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job, 70 pages. You can read them in an hour. These are weapons you could use on normies. You can get that at Amazon. Mike S. King is my author page there. If you can link those for me. But
Yes, sir.
that's what I do. I weave the history and the news together, because if all you know is post-Trump or post-9/11, that's great. But let me tell you, you've only got the last 20 minutes of the movie. The movie's been running for 2 hours prior to that. If you understand the history of this thing. But then mainly I seek with all my work, whether it's books or articles or even these video presentations, my main objective is keep things clear and concise. Effective communication is clear and concise. All right? I don't write these large academic tombs. I want to get people up the learning curve, because our true purpose here is activism, not so much academics. And then you learn and you could teach others. So that's what I do. And but it's been a great show about a very important topic that I know has been of concern to a lot of people in our community. They love Trump and they're like, go, and then they see, oh, there he is again with Netanyahu. Why does he do this? And they waver. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
Don't waver.
Don't waver. Yeah. And listening to you, I have to say, Mike, it's underscored so much of my understanding. It's really bolstered my confidence that you're watching a movie and in Q, and it's just absolutely vital for folks to just to get that message and to do their homework. And I'm telling you, you're going to find yourself at peace. And I mean, we're going through a crazy time right now, but I'm more at peace at this point in time than I've been probably for the entire journey. And I'm seeing people move in the complete opposite direction because they're not grounded in the Q drops. The crazier things get, the more inexplicable they become if you don't go back to the roadmap. You don't go back to the source of where all of this started. And
that's right.
If there's a hill to die on, that's the hill to die on.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Because we got to be on solid ground. Because more as these months unfold, more people, the ones maybe who laughed at you before, are going to come to you for answers. And you got to be solid, and you got to know where you're standing, and you got to be informed.
That's right.
So you're a digital soldier. Act like one.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, Mike. This is amazing. Hopefully going to get you back on. I'm sure we'll talk behind the scenes about what our next collaborative project is going to be. But we did that first show where we went through some of your favorite Q drops. People absolutely loved it. As you mentioned, we also did a 2-part series on Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job. We just finished up a 3-part series on Crash Course New World Order. So I'm really enjoying the relationship, the working relationship that we're developing here. And it's really benefiting my audience and so many great patriots out there, because now is the time. I'm 100% in agreement with you. We have to be grounded. We have to be firm. We have to stand our ground. We don't have to debate and argue with people, but we have to present a united front based on our understanding of this operation, which is all written down. It's all in the Q drops. It's all in the comms. And like I said before, I quoted the famous Q drop: the choice to know will be yours. Yep. So
that's definitely what he meant. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mike King, realnewsandhistory.com. Go check him out. I'm going to put the links to his Amazon page in the description. Like he said, go ahead and pick up